All right. Well, okay. Hello, YouTube. And we are live here. It's a very exciting time for us. We are getting our final preparations to launch our Eclipse 3 after running 2 previous tests. We are ready to do our final launch. So I want to give a very special hello to the Frontiers of Flight Museum. Hello, Frontiers of Flight in Dallas, Texas. Also to my students at Texas Christian University. Hello. Sorry I'm not with you in class today, but I'll see you on Wednesday. And also to Miss Ivy's class and my kids and family back home. Hello, Kepler. Hello, Tesla, Kayla, family. All hope you're tuning in and ready to see. So we've got Mr. Jake Vaught here. He's getting his latex gloves on and getting to handle the balloon. We're gonna fill it up with our helium supply. Okay, and this is where we're gonna tie it off. Make sure it stays in place until we get everything ready. Our parachute again, our radar reflector, and here is our payload. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. Our goal is to launch this payload up into the stratosphere. Our goal is to get to 107,000 feet and capture video footage of the eclipse while it happens. So what we will be doing is having 2 cameras. We have a GoPro camera that will fit on the outside of the box right here, and then also our Kodak Pix Pro, which is going to sit on the top, and that will capture 360 footage of the eclipse. Now, from our test run on Saturday, we learned that we had a couple of issues with these cameras causing some overheating and shutting down. We worked through the night last night trying to solve these issues. We refined our design a little bit, and we believe that we should be able to get quality footage of the eclipse as it is happening. But again, this is all dependent on our equipment working and the winds cooperating. So let me go outside and we'll show you what the sky is looking like right now. So far, there's a little bit of overhead, high wispy clouds, but looks like it should cooperate with us, at least in terms of the launch and in the eclipse when that occurs at 11:38 our local time. Totality here will occur at 1:10 p.m. and everything will be done by about 2:30 or so. Our launch is scheduled for 10:45 a.m. so just 40 minutes from now. We are 40 minutes away from launch. Our launch window is 10:45 until 11 a.m. and that's going to give us a time window of about 2.5 hours of ascent, and so we can capture the eclipse, and it will be still ascending while totality happens, and then we'll be descending upon after we've moved into the next phase, which C3. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to pass the camera off to another educator with the Frontiers of Flight. This is Rosalie. She is the educational coordinator at the Frontiers of Flight Museum.
Hello.
And she is going to be in charge of camera operations during the event, and then I'm going to go help Jake. So here you go, we're leaving this. Oh, do this. And our goal is to get a lift rate of about 1550 grams, so 1,550 grams. And that's going to be enough to carry our payload and also keep our ascent rate at a slow enough speed that it's going to reach near altitudes about the time the totality is happening. So, again, we have a couple of different things that are going to help us to measure this. So obviously Jake is controlling the helium. This is a scale that we're going to use to figure out the the exact lift capacity of the balloon once it is full.
Oh, just coming down.
Yeah, just through the hose. That's a little bit more. And this balloon is 1,200 gram balloon. It's one of the larger weather balloons that you can purchase. And the reason we went for a 1,200 gram balloon is to get a high altitude. We want our altitude to be 107,000 feet, about 32,000 meters above sea level. And the 1,200 gram balloon is going to hopefully get us there. The balloon, we're not going to fill it completely full with helium. We are going to fill it with enough helium that it has a good lift, but eventually what's going to happen is as the pressure decreases in the atmosphere, the helium is going to expand and cause the balloon to burst. And so once it reaches a high enough altitude, once it gets a high enough altitude, the balloon will begin to burst. And then we'll descend, and our parachute is going to keep everything safe on its descent.
We're getting drafty here, so let's open the doors
And close. Yeah. All right. So thank you again for tuning in for our YouTube audience. Again, hello to my students who may be tuning in just now at Texas Christian University, and to the Frontiers of Flight Museum. So welcome. And the reason that we are doing this is we are trying to capture footage from the eclipse from the stratosphere. That's the name, Project Stratoclipse. And the goal is to create a planetarium show and get a documentary film out there, a process that science is a process, and we've been going through that process for Jake. We've been planning this for years. We've had this for been talking about it at least 5 years. The idea of doing a balloon and then mirroring the idea of the balloon from Marshall has been something we've been talking about for about a year or so. Pull it out that way?
Pull it this way. I just don't want to do. I don't want to blow off. I think like when you put the door straight, it'll be
All right, and we are coming to you from the vehicle assembly building. This is where we've been designing and making final preparations for our design, and the benefit to having in here is we can have a stable environment. The balloon's not exposed to the sunlight, and then we have big bay load doors that we can just carry this out when we're ready to launch. And so what we're going to be doing after we fill the balloon is Jake is going to take the payload to an air-conditioned vehicle where we can keep our cameras cool while we're making final preparations. So this balloon will stay in the building, and then we'll move to a different location for filling or for making final preparations to the payload.
you guys the latest club but you won't really get them on. it's not holding up the nozzle yet. So
No, we're not quite there yet because of that.
this one's not going to look like it's as full when you have that to it.
Right.
So this would be.
Okay.
It's not even close to it.
Okay.
So here, if you would, just take that. Or do you want to measure it? You want to measure it?
What's that? Yes.
Not that way.
Oh, with the carabiner. All right, so what we're doing is we're trying to see if there's any significant lift. The amount of helium is going to have to be enough to lift the balloon plus the payload, which is about 1,100 grams. That's just under 2.5 pounds. So all of this is under 2.5 pounds. That means the force of lift from the helium is going to have to be more than the weight of our payload. So we want to have an extra about 500 grams of lift. And that means total, our lift force will be about 1,550 grams to be able to lift our payload at a good ascent rate.
It's finally starting to pull, but it's not.
Not significant yet.
Let's get
And once this is full, we're not quite at that point yet, but once the balloon is full enough, we are going to use the rubber bands to tie it and seal it off. If this were just a standard balloon, you may tie a knot, but what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 points of seal. So we'll have a rubber band here, a rubber band there. We're going to fold it and then tie it with a third rubber band. And then just as an added measure for safety, we're going to seal it with tape. So that is our plan.
How are we on the clearance from the top?
We got plenty of clearance. That's not an issue.
Alright. Okay, so. Alright, let me go.
Okay,
So we still got a ways to go.
yeah, so our lift right now is at 270 grams, which if we were to tie up our payload now would not be enough to lift into the stratosphere. It would just kind of hover. It might even pull it down. So we're going to need a bit more helium to be able to get our payload off the ground. Time is 10:17. 28 minutes away from our launch window.
You have to remember, we'll do the first rubber band, second rubber band, and then we feed it through the ring.
That's right. Then we have the ring. Then we fold it up. Final rubber band and then tape.
We've got good clearance to the top.
Let me double check. Let me get further away. Yeah, we've got at least a good 5 feet from the top.
This is a perfect vehicle assembly building.
Yeah. So we have a stable environment, not a significant amount of wind, good clearance height, and then we're going to be able to fit it through our payload doors over there. So what is our pull that right now. No,
460,
470 grams. It's still not quite enough. We're going to need roughly about 1,000 more grams of. Now, our helium tank is a 300 cubic foot helium tank. It is quite heavy. It was about 144 pounds empty. And at 300 cubic feet, it's more than enough. We need 100 cubic feet of helium approximately to get our lift at where we need to be. So we've got plenty.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
About 600 grams of lift. Okay. We're getting there. And this may feel like it's taking a while, but really we want to make sure we get the lift right, and so we're filling it at a slow pace. We don't want to fill it with too much helium. Because if we do, that's going to cause the ascent rate to increase. The more helium, the faster that this is going to ascend into the atmosphere. So we want to make sure that our lift rate is right where we want it. That's why we're taking our time, making sure that we do this process correctly. Rubber bands are ready for when we need it. 750, about 750. Okay, times 10, 20, 25 minutes to launch window. Now our launch window is approximately 10:45 to 11 o'clock, so that's in about 25 minutes is when we hope to be launching the balloon. Like I said, our first priority, we got to get the helium. Once this is in place, then Jake is going to run and get our final payload prepped. And by 10:45, hopefully we should be good to go. Our launch window is 10:45 to about 11 o'clock. We've actually designed it that if we are a little bit towards the later end, that's still okay, and later might be better, depending on. What's that?
890,
Almost
almost 900.
900 grams of lift, still not enough to lift our payload. We
Magic
need,
number is 15.
yeah, 1,500, so we need roughly 600 more grams of lift. So we're getting there, we're getting close.
We're on time.
We're 10:21, so we're doing good. We've been filling the balloon for about 17 minutes now. And again, we're almost there. And again, for those who are just starting to tune in live, welcome. My name is Bo, and this is Jake Vaught, and we are with Project Eclipse.
We're about 1,000. So $500. Water break. Yeah, this is actually a fish scale for weighing fish.
Yeah, yeah. So this is just a standard digital scale, a fish scale, and the pull is going. When you pull it, it's going to measure the force in terms of grams. So,
See where we're at.
what are we at? We're getting close.
We're above 1,000, so we're climbing up to
1185, 1175. We're getting close. So again, thank you for tuning in. Like I said earlier, my name is Bo, and this is Jake, and we are with Project Eclipse. Our goal is to get our helium balloon up to an altitude of about 107,000 feet. We're going to be launching our payload, which is in its cool down stage right now. We're trying to keep our payload nice and cool. So that will include 2 cameras, a GoPro and a Kodak Pix Pro. And the goal is to capture video footage of the solar eclipse as it is happening. And we are launching in Marshall, Missouri. And this is in the path of totality. So from this location, as long as the skies cooperate, we should see a total solar eclipse. And what's that? It's slowing down.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the reduced pressure, but
Yeah.
let's.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
Sorry, what's wrong? No, we're okay. We're gonna run this back. Okay, right now our lift is about 1,200 grams. We're gonna.
So what we have to do is we have to take.
Let's do a final weight check.
Okay, we've got go to Ron. He's in
Yep.
either that, there's a welding supply right over here. If somebody wants to make an emergency run and ask them for a helium tank really fast.
Okay, let's check here with Mark. But when we need to do a final weight check, we can run our calculations. Where is? You want to hand it off to Dave? All right. Okay. Dave, we need to take
This is not good. Where's Ron Drake?
What's up, Jake?
Where's Ron? Either Ron Drake. We need Ron Drake.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
What?
It all came down to this right here.
That it
This tank. And it either doesn't have enough helium in it, or the calculators we use for the helium off. Like we made sure we had 100 cubic feet more than we needed.
Are you telling me right now there's a shortage?
Yeah, it's done. The tank's done.
How much weight do you have?
Larry's welding over there. You think he's over there? Think we can get a helium tank real fast?
Let me call. I gotta get my phone.
How low are you? We need approximately 400 more grams of equipment.
400 grams?
400 grams more equipment.
I'll take this out
Okay,
there.
how much is that gonna make a huge
I'll take
difference?
this out there if you want this one.
400 grams?
We're gonna have to.
Yeah, why don't you
take
take
it
the
out.
table?
Yeah.
You can kind of explain the eclipse.
All right, we're troubleshooting over here with helium, so we're gonna go visit one of our museum educators, Ian Gray, He's going to talk a little bit about the solar eclipse. Surprise, you're on camera.
Hello. Who do we have here?
We have Frontiers of Flight Museum and TCU.
Live streaming.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I do have a nice little demo in addition to some giveaways for our folks attending here. Eclipse glasses, which are specially made and actually the correct ones for safely viewing the eclipse. There we go. And there'll be specific things you can look for. But ultimately, with the number of fraudulent ones we have around here, you really can't trust the printing, so it's best to really do a quick test and see how the optical transmittance is with something that's not the sun first, a really bright light, and see how dim it is. And the best way to test it is if you actually have a UV pen. So a UV pen, if it's a proper safety glasses, you should not have any UV transmittance through it, because it's really the UV which is going to be the most damaging to your retinas. And you don't have to have very long exposure for it to be really bad. That's why you should never look directly at the sun. And it's why, especially looking at it through a telescope or any sort of optical enhancement, binoculars, cameras, will make sure you have no eyeball left after that. And remember, these are not solar glasses. These are sunglasses. And you should never look at even the solar eclipse. Now, totality is a different story because the sun is totally blocked out by the moon. And that is the time where you can actually look directly at where the sun is when it is blocked by the moon. But as soon as totality is over, and they have countdown apps for it, you can have a dozen different ways of figuring out exactly when totality ends, because as soon as it does, glasses back on. And I've got a couple of really nice little demos here as well to explain what we have going on around here. This is a 1/300 millionth scale model of our Earth and Moon system. So the Earth is about 1.5 inches, actually it's 1.4 inches in diameter at this point, and it has this really nice detail for the continents and everything on it. You're there. And we have our slightly less detailed but very awesome moon. And so at this scale, both objects are going to be about 2.4 feet. It's going to be about 30 inches or about 0.75 meters away from each other, which is about this far. This is the distance to scale between the Earth and the moon, which is also why it takes the moon a little over 27 days to make it all the way around. Now, what we're dealing with today is an alignment of 3 celestial objects: the moon, the Earth, and our sun, who's trying to hide behind clouds. And actually, I just figured out a good way of demonstrating the rest of the scale we're looking at here. So, if you look over there, you'll see the Marshall Water Tower. See it? Right over here. Take more steps. There we go. Everybody see it? There we go. Well, our moon here, if we hold it up at arm's distance from here, you'll see it's roughly, actually move that way, sorry. There you go. If I hold it at about arm's distance from the camera, we'll see it's about the size of the water tower, which is how we know this is more or less a good scale distance-wise. Yes, at this scale, the sun would be a little bit over 1 kilometer away. And so, with these 3 objects lining up perfectly, we get a shadow. And shadows are really fun. So, in this case, we have this big old diffuse ball of gas producing light far, far away in space. And so because that light is going out in all directions, we're going to end up with a conical shadow on our moon. And so we're going to have a penumbra that spreads out into space, and we're going to have a umbra, which is targeted to one specific point, the lighter part of the shadow and the darker part of the shadow. And that's the difference between a partial and a total solar eclipse here in the United States today. So what we're going to be seeing is every place that has a partial, they're going to be in the penumbra, the surrounding shadow of the moon as it passes across the sun's direct line of sight with the Earth. But in that specific line across the United States, that path of totality, that is where the umbra, the darkest part of the shadow of the moon, is going to cross. And that is going to completely block out all of the light from the sun. That's what's going to let us see the corona around it. It's what's going to make the sky go dark without a sunset. It's what's going to give us that 360 sunset. All the crickets are going to think it's night, and everybody's going to go, wow, hopefully. And hopefully that cooperates as well. And so, one question that comes up is, well, if it's just the moon going in front of the sun, and the moon is a new moon right now, don't we have a new moon once a month like we have a full moon? Why don't we have eclipses every month? Well, it has to do with angles and having everything line up just right. So, the moon's orbit around the Earth is not a perfect plane, and nor is it a perfect circular orbit as well. It's both an elliptical orbit and it's off by about 5 degrees. That's not a lot, cosmically speaking, especially for a close-by object like our moon. But given the astronomical distances involved, that 5-degree difference means that the moon is usually hundreds of kilometers, thousands of kilometers actually, above or below where the Earth is in space during a given solar or given during a normal new moon or full moon. So full moon, it'd be up here, be down here. New moon, it's up here or down here. Only twice a year does the moon's orbit cross the equatorial plane of our planet relative to the sun. And when it crosses that solar plane, that is when it lines up perfectly. And it happens usually in pairs, almost always in pairs, because you have the moon cross in front. That's when you'll get a solar eclipse, whether it's a partial, an annular, or a total. And you'll have a lunar eclipse back when it is on the full moon side. And so you'll generally have them in pairs. 2 full moons producing lunar eclipses, 2 new moons producing solar eclipses. And you'll generally have those somewhere on the Earth twice a year, every year. Now, the extent to which you will be able to see those, how long they last, and where on Earth they hit is based on a whole bunch of different celestial mechanics, including the exact positions of where our moon, Earth, and sun system are relative to each other, those tiny variations in the fact that we are not dealing with perfect circular orbits, we're dealing with ellipses within ellipses, and so that's what produces the stunning variation in types and durations of eclipses, both lunar and solar. The longest eclipse we had last century lasted almost 9 minutes, I think. This one is on the shorter end of eclipses. It's only going to last about 2 minutes and 41 or 43 seconds at maximum totality. Some eclipses last only a few minutes, some can last much longer, some can last just a tiny bit, like the African eclipse we had a few years ago, which was what was called a hybrid eclipse. And a hybrid eclipse, that was really special because that was an annular eclipse, but during the time it took for totality to finish, the Earth closer to where the moon was and produced a total solar eclipse for a very brief time within what was a standard annular eclipse. And so that's a little bit about eclipses and the fact that we have lots of really interesting phenomena that are going in here, but it basically boils down to a cosmic lineup. Everything lining up just so for us to be able to see it like this. And this is a really good time cosmically speaking, because in a couple billion years the moon will have moved, it will have shifted farther away in its orbit, and we will no longer have total eclipses because it will be too far away to obscure the full disk of the sun. The best we can get is an annular eclipse by then. But again, got a couple billion years to wait for that, so I would enjoy it while we can. Anything else you need?
Well, that was great. Thank
Awesome.
you. We're gonna head back inside to see what's happening with us.
Everybody heard that? Yeah, you have a great voice to carry. Thank you. I'm used to doing auditorial presentations. Yes, you'll have. Yes. Yes. For instance, the one we had in spring, we had one in May, and it crossed over part of Indonesia and part of, I think, Hawaii, but all the rest of it was over Micronesia and Polynesia, which is actually one of the really cool things because this eclipse is going to be the best documented eclipse in Indonesia.
All right, so we had a last minute adjustment that we had to make. So the amount of helium that we had ran dry. So we anticipated having an extra 100 cubic feet, but it seems as if that was not the case. So in order to still have enough lift, we made a change to our payload. Yep. Okay, so we had to make an adjustment like I was saying. We ended up needing to cut some weight. We'd still have positive lift. So we're removing the 360 camera from the payload. That's going to save us about 200 grams. The other plus side to that is that the heat issue we were concerned with is no longer an issue. We should be able to capture complete footage with the GoPro throughout the entirety of the flight. So sometimes as you're moving along through science, you have to make these adjustments and engineering principles. So that's what we're doing.
Sorry, drop the.
In Murphy's Law. There it is. There it is. That's cinch date. And then I'm going to do one safety. Okay, let's get it out.
All right, you go run to the van, and I'm gonna carry the radar and shoot. Keep that clear. All right, so we are moving into our final preparations. We're gonna take the balloon outside, and Jake is going to get our payload all nice and ready, and hopefully we're gonna launch soon. Nathan, can you actually grab that blue tablet for me? Because one of the things that I want to do is check and make sure we're still getting a good GPS reading. So, you want to hold this? Yeah. Carry it up there? All right, there. Just make sure we keep all the lines clear and not tangled. So that's the end of this one. Okay, all right. All right. You guys go ahead and head on out to...
Guys, watch out.
Coming through. Clear, clear. You good? Yep.
Tree.
You good? Watch that building. He's in the van, front seat.
I'm gonna go near there and kind of drive down and get out of the window.
Yeah, we should be about 5 minutes or so. Okay. All right, guys. So we're still within our launch window. It's 10:47. We are hoping to launch in about 5 minutes. Once we get our final payloads, I'm monitoring our GPS tracker, making sure that we're still getting a signal, which we are. And in about 5 minutes time, Jake's our payload all set up. We'll tie it off and send it in. So that's the good news. The downside is, if you look up in the sky, the clouds appear to have moved in. So the balloon is going to capture the eclipse anyway. Once it gets above the clouds don't matter to us. We'll still hopefully capture that umbra, the shadow of the moon, as it's moving across the landscape. And then we're gonna really, really hope that they clear out here so that we can watch the eclipse and enjoy the eclipse from the ground. So that's the plan. But the one thing we can't control is the weather. Everything else we can control. We can change what we put in our payload, we can control the helium, we can control when we launch. We just can't control the weather. So, just a couple minutes away.
So why? Okay. It's got to be. But the one thing, yeah. Taped off as we. That means that the cameras are set. We check the GPS. The GPS is set. So we're literally about a minute, maybe two at tops before launching. So we gotta tape it up, make sure that that payload stays connected. Did you hear that, Ron? We're about 2 minutes out. Are we okay? You give me the thumbs up when we're clear. Okay, right now we've got a good window.
Okay. Good. So we've got a good window. We're clear of any incoming planes, any airspace traffic that we need to be concerned with. We've got the okay on that. And so once we're tied up, we should be good to go. Checking one piece of equipment. Okay, lid is back closed. Lid is closed. Okay, and for those again tuning in, we are with Project Eclipse. My name is Bo. Jake Vaught is the lead designer. He is in the car. He's making final preparations. We are launching our weather balloon to capture video footage of the eclipse as it happens. So. Once we finish that payload with our GoPro camera inside, we're going to tie it off and send it up. So hopefully we can capture some good footage of the eclipse as it is happening. We are still within our launch window. It's only 10:53, so we should be okay. Well within our launch window to reach ascent as totality is happening. Air in there again. That's to keep the inside cool as it's in the atmosphere.
All right, now we gotta tighten it.
All right, so here we are. Jake's got our final payload ready. We're gonna tie it off, and our countdown should begin fairly soon.
No, not too soon.
Hey Jake.
Yeah.
I would go to the other side of Nathan.